Welcome to MarTech Heads, the radio show that helps tech marketers stay ahead of the game. Hosted by Jeff Sheehan and Sarah Torville.
This is Jeff Sheehan along with Sarah Torville of Media Frenzy, and we're here at the Flip My Funnel event in Atlanta. We're so excited. We've had already a couple of tremendous guests, and we have another great guest lined up here now with Sean Zinsmeister, the product marketing director at a company called Infer, and he flew in here all the way from Silicon Valley to join us today, and it's a real pleasure having you with us, Sean. And you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about the company, what you do, and some products and services, and then if you could lead into what are you doing here today with regard to addressing the funnel and what it actually means.
Sure. My name is Sean Zinsmeister. I have the honor to sort of head product marketing at a company called Infer, and we do predictive scoring for sales and marketing teams to help you find customers who are a good fit for your product. And we build a few different types of predictive models. It's kind of great to slow the conversation down in this world of predictive. Really, it's about finding the right customers who fit your product. And I think that that's a great segue into the theme that we're talking about today, because when you think about account-based marketing and flipping the funnel, what are we really talking about, right? It's a change of optics. You've gone from something really, really big, and you have, the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years with the, more traffic coming on the internet, wider funnels at the top. A freemium model certainly that have been introduced to businesses, really filling in, top of the funnel inquiries, and it gets really difficult for you to figure out who do I talk to first, who are the best fits for my company, and those are really, really important questions, because the topic of prioritization is something huge for sales. You really don't want your reps spending time on bad leads, because the old cliche "time is money" is actually quite true, because you're letting opportunities fall through the cracks. And so when I say it's a change of optics, right, it's going from looking through a lens of something that's very big to something that's very small. And I think that that's where accounts, you see this paradigm shift from contacts to accounts. You are forced yourself to look at through a narrower lens. And I think that that's really important for the marketer today, because we talk about flipping the funnel. So something that I've talked about with teams that I've had the pleasure of running in the past is this idea of thinking backwards and working backwards. Mm-hmm. It's like, where you stand today. You don't need help defining that. But what does success look like? You can talk about all of the acronyms and the alphabet soup that marketers love to throw out there, ABM and everything else. And I think that that's great. Those are great new strategies. But what are you trying to achieve? We're in a world now that we can measure anything. Mm-hmm. Anything. You find a technology stack out there to solve that for you. But really, what does success look like? Because if you can't have that North Star and we're trying to work your way backwards, it's really tough to get there. And I think that that's kind of a main philosophy of this sort of flip my funnel and account-based marketing. Let's start to look at the accounts and then what are these companies about, and start with the pain and how we can solve it.
So how does the tool do that?
Sure. So when we sort of look at building models for companies, we're taking all of your CRM data and marrying it with thousands of external signals. Mm-hmm. And we want to take a look at people who are coming into your funnel and even net new opportunities that are out there and say, who looks a lot like past close one opportunities? And we roll it up into a score, a predictive score, what we call a fit score, right, because that's a very easy way for marketers to understand it, right? You have these sort of what we call 4 static personas, if you will, A, B, C, and D. Mm-hmm. And so as a rep, I can very simply prioritize my time, and I can say, I want to look at these accounts because I know that I'm going to, increase my conversion rates the more that I'm prioritizing my time. And it's not just that too, because when we talk about customer centricity, right, where it's like, we want the customer to be the center of our universe. We don't want to spend time going after bad customers, because bad customers, mm-hmm, we can sell to them quickly, mm-hmm, and we can get their dollars, but what's going to happen to them? They're going to churn over time.
Correct.
You have the inevitable attrition. Yeah. And that's what, when you think about this, predictive analytics and the things that we're doing, the work that we're studying, mm-hmm, this sort of new frontier, those are the types of things that you're addressing with this. Mm-hmm. If you are able to, again, you narrow your optics, mm-hmm, and sort of look at things for who do I talk to who's a good fit for my customer? And are you brave enough as a company to say, you're not a good fit and I don't want to spend time with you?
Yeah.
Now, the other half of that, we talked about sort of fit scoring that we do, and building sort of predictive models to tell that story. The other side of it is what we call behavioral scoring as well. So behavioral models, where we're taking these leading marketing automation systems like, say, your Eloqua, Marketo, Pardot, and HubSpot, and, we're cracking those systems open, taking all the data out and beginning to model it using machine learning and say, okay, who's now showing buying propensity? And you marry those models into sort of that 4x4 matrix that you might see, your A's to D's in your vertical, and then in your horizontal, your 1 through 4. And the reason that you want to add behavior into it is that just because somebody might not look like a great fit today, you don't want to give up on those people who are showing really, really strong signals of buying propensity. And we kind of help bridge that gap.
So it must be an extremely complex algorithm that you use, that you've developed, and probably several algorithms depending upon the customers, depending upon the industry, and everything else.
It certainly can be. And, the people that we talk to, have the pleasure of talking to some of the brightest modern marketers, the geekiest of marketers that you talk to. And then there's what I like to call sort of the back of the book marketers. Like, they just want the answers. They don't really care how the stuff works. To me, it's like what gets me exciting. It gets me really excited because the predictions and the models that we build, they don't just stop when we say, okay, we understand your business, we're going to build this model, here are the results that we're going to sort of offer to you. When you talk about machine learning and data science, right, those are the two big sort of hot terms, and I think it's important to demystify those. Data science is looking for patterns. You have all this data swimming around in your ecosystem, and you're using data science to find those patterns. And what do those look like? And can you replicate those over time? That's where fit comes in. I want to talk to more people who look like this pattern of behavior. But machine learning is, as you continue to close new business, we are learning new things about your company and the way that you do business. And there's manual work that needs to be involved as well. So like there are things that will shift models over time. You launch a new product or you go overseas and you're opening into new markets. That's where I think the other big theme of Flip My Funnel comes in when we talk about customer success, because that's something that we have to focus a lot at and Infer, which is, yes, it can be very complicated, and we try to slow things down and take things as pragmatically as we can, but we have to put a lot of stock in account management and customer success to not only monitor models for drift, what we say, if we see something, we measure everything on an overall probability, right? Predict the accuracy of a prediction. And if we see things sort of drifting, whether it's like poor performance, or if we start to see things that are like too good to be true, that might be a time where we have to have an additional conversation with a customer and say, hey, let's look at your business, what changed?
It sounds complicated. Sorry, I'm just thinking back, I'm going back kind of 10, 15 years in marketing where you kind of define the customer, you had a view of what you thought that customer would look like, but you had no sense of whether that is going to turn into a true customer or not. You took your chances and you did your mass marketing, and then you try to tailor it a little bit more, but you've taken it so many steps forward. I mean, but it sounds like a science. I mean, this is like MarTech to 100% degree. I mean, it's steroids. Like on steroids.
Well, to use a consumer, my favorite sort of consumer example, and it's kind of, this is sort of born from the DNA that our founders came from the consumer search world, doing great work with Google, Microsoft, Yahoo. And I think if you were to look back years ago and tell me that there was a magic box on my computer that I could type a question into and I would receive an answer, I think you were nuts. I think
fortune telling, we're talking, this is that whole, we were talking about that earlier today.
And now if you take what the great work that Google is doing, the machine learning, and how personalized your search is and my search is today, they are predicting this based on all these past searches. Because they have heaps and heaps of the best intent data out there. Because I'm asking questions to this box. And now it's not only, it's predicting, it's completing sentences for me. And really, if you take that idea about what Google's doing and how they're doing consumer search today, I like to think of it as that Infer is sort of packaging that to solve B2B sales and marketing problems.
So are you seeing true ROI with your sales teams? I mean, even just internally, does Infer use this? I mean, because that's proof is in the pudding, truly. Like if you can't get value from it, then you can't expect other people to. So
I can't avoid to throw out, the sort of cliche Silicon Valley dog fooding, if
Yes,
you will, or
yeah.
drinking your own champagne.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we consider ourselves a customer of Infer. So our head of demand gen, for example, has his own account manager,
Right.
and we are the first in line to try every single new product
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And I think that you brought up a really important point, where it's like, are you seeing success? And I would say that this is probably the tip of the spear of our marketing today. We put so much emphasis on what customers are seeing success, because this stuff is really complicated,
Yeah.
and it almost seems too fantastic. And it is important for people to, when I talk about like, oh, there's so many predictive vendors out there, how do you guys differentiate? I say, best place to start, don't talk to me. Talk to customers who are seeing success
Yeah.
with these products. Look at the pain that they're solving, and look at their playbook. Can you borrow plays from their playbook? Because then we might be a great fit for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And I've had the pleasure of working with some of the fastest growing companies out in both marketing technology and technology in general. Definitely the mid-market and high-growth companies, folks like Box, HubSpot, Tableau. Those are all companies that just are doing amazing things. And we learn from those marketers too.
I bet.
Because the predictive scores are so malleable in what you can do with them, right? The use cases we have certainly like almost a dozen or so primary use cases that we get folks started with.
So your primary focus on B2B, or
Yes,
Yes.
primarily focused on
do anything
B2B.
in the B2C space?
It's an interesting frontier, and there's a lot of brands doing interesting work in consumer. And I think that when you think about how fast this landscape is moving, focus becomes really important.
Critical, absolutely.
And I think that where you're starting to see shifts, where there's really two ways that you can go. And this is actually true for most technology companies, not alone just folks doing great work in predictive. You're either going to go very deep into your product set, doing a lot of customer development. You're talking to a lot of people and investing a lot of calories in building just an outstanding product. Or you go the other route, where you're sort of saying, we're going to go sort of deep with product, but we're going to sort of layer on lots of services and lots of services. And neither model is right or wrong. Right? Because some businesses, if you're the Dells of this world, or the Lenovo's of this world, you might actually require that type of services in order to be successful. But a lot of modern marketers just want you to get the heck out of the way. Like I think with our sort of mantra at Infer is like, we want to be your trusted advisors, but we don't want to be consultants.
Yeah.
We're here to sort of help you, but like this is where the customer community like really starts to shine. It's like, again, we want to introduce you to the people who are doing great work in that, because hear their stories, hear what they were doing in the trenches with this stuff and what they solved, and learn how you can sort of do it for yourself.
So within Infer, and the answer cannot be your own platform here. I'm going to ask you a question. So what is the MarTech tool do you think you could not live without?
Yeah.
Beyond your own wonderful tool, of course.
So I kind of think my choice might surprise you a little bit, but I am a big project management buff. It's part of my background. And I think that the stuff I can't live without is that if you took my Trello board away, I'm going to be lost in the woods.
Right.
Like that is my own personal project management tool, and that is how I keep track of. Email becomes so overwhelming, and the messages just don't stop coming. I sort of use that and Asana as sort of our project management, and there's tons out there.
Right.
But I think that we're only about we're not a huge team, roughly about a little bit over 50 people. But even that, you need to be able to control where all the projects are coming from, because you're working with contractors, and you need to understand, like, you want to set expectations too, right? It was like that's that working backwards feeling. It's like, this is my deliverable, and this is the point that I want to get it out. I can't live without that technology.
Oh,
So where do you see things going?
So I think when I look at where the landscape is going, I'm going to draw another sort of consumer analogy, and I think that GPS works really well in this situation. So before we had any of this great, fantastic applications and iPhones and things like that, remember we were using sort of MapQuest and old school to sort of describe how to get from here to there, and that was sort of level one. Google Maps comes along and says, okay, you're trying to get to A to B, and I'm going to essentially predict how long it's going to take you to get there, and I'm going to offer you a few different routes. Right. Then you have Waze, which is essentially in the middle of my drive. Now I'm saying, hey, there's all this stuff happening on the road. in real time, I'm going to offer you different types of turns to get around this, better routes. So when I think about marketing technology today, and I think about what our customers are talking to us about, it really is getting to that sort of Waze model to be, what do I do next? Now that you've told me what the behavior is like and that you're a good fit for my customer, what is the best action for me as a marketer to take? Because if you look at that landscape, is it display? Is it retargeting? Is it email nurturing? I mean, it goes on and on and on. What's going to get me the highest conversion rate? And what's going to help me lead to success?
Yeah.
Is it putting them in that nurture program? If so, which one? Is it putting them in a display ABM campaign? Those are where I really think, and I think that lots of different terms being thrown around, but prescriptive marketing, I think, is something that you're going to start to hear.
Another new term
Another new
today.
term.
Another new
Okay.
term, right?
Yes,
And I think
yes,
that we're
absolutely.
going to get bogged down with too many acronyms and
I
terms,
know.
but that's really, I think, if I could extend that analogy one place more, beyond Waze, what do you have, right? It's the autonomous driving car. It's the Google car, which those things, I've driven behind them, and I'm always a little bit wary, like a little bit. I kind of want to take a peek
You've
to see.
driven behind a Google car?
Yeah, they're all
Wow.
over. Having the luxury of living in Mountain View,
Yes.
Yeah.
the neighborhoods are where they test these. I don't even know what. And if you visit the Computer Science Museum in Mountain View, a spectacular place, they have a Google car on display,
Right.
and they kind of talk about the technology. I think that we are moving into more of this type of automation.
Yeah.
I think that the what we were promised with marketing automation today is broken, and I think it's sometimes disappointing.
Right.
And I think that when you think about how we're fueling these autonomous vehicles with data, just like Google's doing right now,
Totally,
right?
yeah.
That they're collecting it. I think that that's sort of an analogy of what I'm looking at.
Well,
at
let's
the
hope
time.
it doesn't happen completely, though, because what's going to happen, you can displace all kinds of marketers throughout the
Yeah.
world.
Well,
Yeah.
I think what's important there is, and I'll tell you that this is, before I got into marketing, I was a musician. And I think that for me, what was great about marketing as a profession is it's part math and part creativity. There's always going to be a place for creativity in
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah.
It can't be all paint by numbers marketing.
I know.
We'll lose our minds.
Well, I wouldn't be interested in
Yeah.
if it was all paint by numbers, because
I
you
love
need
that analogy, as a matter of
creativity.
fact, yeah.
Definitely. Well, look, it's fantastic talking to you this morning, and really enjoyed it, and I know our listeners are gonna and our viewers are gonna just learn so much from you. So
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're speaking at the Flip My Funnel conference today as
Yes,
well. So
yes.
there's lots of exciting things happening at Infer, and I look for wish you every piece of success with that.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Bye bye.